Today, I want to walk you through just the super basics of pressing vinyl records. I mean, I'm a huge vinyl collector, but I've only been a vinyl collector in the past 10 years. I mean, I grew up with tapes and CDs, but I was introduced to vinyl very late in life. But I thought it was really cool because I liked how big the artwork was. I liked just experiencing, it was kind of in a response to how prevalent digital music had become. And I realized it was like my way of showing how much I valued music by having these like giant, cumbersome records, the albums I loved in jumbo format. And to this day, now I have hundreds of records and I love making records and buying records. And today we're going to talk about making records because there are a lot of people like me, millions, in fact, and the sales of vinyl and the interest in vinyl, especially from indie artists and indie record labels, are soaring. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just some basics that you need to know. We're not going to go into the whole thing. If you look on my channel, we have way more on this topic. But today we're just going to look at three key components. Speaking of making vinyl, a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Hellbender Vinyl. They're a brand new pressing plant in Pittsburgh. In fact, they're the only pressing plant in Pittsburgh. And not only are they super considerate and empathetic to indie artists and indie record labels, but they actually also own a record label and run a record label. So they know the needs of small runs and people who are maybe just dipping their toes into the vinyl pressing world. So if you want to check them out and if you want to get started, after you watch this video, you're ready to get started on your first vinyl release for your record label, or as an independent artist, go to hellbendervinyl.com. And thanks to them for sponsoring today's episode. There's just three things I want to talk about. The first one is like my most, I think is the most important and is something that I love to talk about, and that is lead time. That is basically how long you give yourself to plan for this project. And because it's such an intricate project, it has so many pieces of artwork, like the cover, and the jacket and the sleeve and any of the extras you include and the labels on either side, the vinyl, the color of the vinyl. That's not even talking about the music that goes on the vinyl and the mastering that's required. That there is so much involved. And of course, the finances, like getting quotes and then realizing, okay, this is going to cost a couple $1,000s. How many are we going to press? How many can we afford? How many can we sell? Asking all these questions are super important, but you need the time to do this. This is not something you can just go online and make it happen this week. You really need to prepare for this. First of all, don't underestimate the artwork complications. I spoke to a pressing plant one time and they told me that that is the number one thing that holds up a vinyl project. It's the artwork, making sure that you have bleeds, making sure that you have high resolution artwork. Some people will just take the digital file and hope that they can scale it up to 12 centimeters or 12 inches, and it doesn't look that good. So make sure you're working with a professional graphic designer. Maybe you have the album cover already done and you go onto Fiverr and you hire a designer who's going to help you take it from just that initial album cover concept into like a gatefold or something with a spine and a backside. You have labels that go on each disc and a different label for side A and side B. It can get really, really complicated. So you work with your pressing plant to make sure that they provide you with the templates and how they need to receive files, and then you work with the designer. Either way, this is why we start the process really early. There's fluctuating lead times. After COVID, there was some like chaotic lead times of like 12 to 13 months. It was a big deal. Now I think we're down to like 3, 4, 5 months. But by the time you're watching this video a year or 2 years from now, that could have drastically increased back to a year lead time. It could drop to a couple weeks. Who knows? But whatever that fluctuating number is, you need to be kind of prepared. You need time to talk to your mix engineer and your mastering engineer to let them know that you're pressing vinyl, because they might just be giving you files that's sufficient for digital, but you might want to let them know that, hey, we're doing vinyl. We need the mastering engineer to be a little bit considerate. Maybe they provide one master that's leaning a little bit more favorable towards vinyl so that it sounds good on a turntable, and then just hoping that also sounds good on streaming. Or maybe they're providing you with a streaming version and then a high resolution digital audio version and then a vinyl version. Who knows? But we want the time to have these conversations. Another huge holdup of this vinyl pressing process will come from the artists themselves. They are going to go back and forth on artwork. They're going to go back and forth on features. Do we do color vinyl or do we do black vinyl? Do we include a download code or do we not? What's the track listing going to be? There's so many things that can really hold up a process, and the artist is a big component of it. especially because they're spending a lot of money. And once you press the vinyl and you print the jackets and they're shipped to your studio, they're shipped to your home, they're shipped to the label, it's over. If you make a mistake, that's on you. I find that process super intimidating. I don't mean to scare you. All of that to say, when? Well, I think if the band is in the studio, the artist has visions of doing a 7-inch, like with one song, or a 7-inch split with another band. Or if the artist has visions of this new album they're working on, they want to press on 12-inch vinyl, then start that conversation, start the research process while they're still in the studio or while the mix engineer has the files. That's like 6 to 12 months before release day. No problem at all. I mean, I start the conversation with my pressing plant. I know who my pressing plant is. I'll be dreaming about album artwork before the album is even in the mixing phase. Number 2 is, how do you find a manufacturing plant? Well, you could just call our sponsor, Hellbender Vinyl, by going to hellbendervinyl.com. That would mean a lot to me. That would support the channel and support them as well, who are great. The point is, this is controversial, there really isn't a bad one that's come across my desk in the industry. I mean, I kind of keep an ear to our community who's talking about various pressing plants. Whenever I ask, like, who is your favorite pressing plant, I usually get 50 different answers. So I haven't really seen anyone that's like problematic or not doing great work. So I just want to tell you that, like, don't stress about it. Like, vinyl manufacturing is like it's like car manufacturing. It's a very intricate process. It's a very physical and hands-on process. The plants that are doing it are often like trying to do a really good job. If they do a bad job, they probably won't stay in business very long. So I think it's really important you ask around in your community, specifically your genre or your niche. Because I don't know, I think there are plants that would say, hey, we're good at pressing punk vinyl and we're good at pressing jazz vinyl. There is no difference. And of course, that is in theory correct. But I don't know, I also feel kind of warm and fuzzy inside if I'm pressing vinyl at the same plant that my favorite record label or my favorite band is pressing. I just feel like if I have a record in my collection that I really love, I might want my own record pressed at the same place that record was. I don't know, is that irrational? Maybe. I think that's a good place to start. If you feel daunted by Googling pressing plant, that's just probably a good place to start. Are there people in your city, other artists who have had success pressing their record at a plant that's nearby or somewhere in America or in Europe or whatever? Maybe ask around. Let's start with this. Get 3 quotes. That's kind of normal procedure. So find 3 pressing plants that you've heard recommended in our community, people in your music community, people that you found online yourself. Narrow it down to 3, maybe 4, doesn't matter, but find at least 3 and then just reach out to them and ask for a quote. Tell them about your project. It might take you 2 weeks to hear back from one plant, and that's kind of a red flag. I mean, you're like, well, I would like to have heard back from someone immediately. And maybe you hear from someone an hour later and it's a really friendly person who has listened to your music and is excited to work on your project. That might give you a warm feeling. Maybe that's a green flag right there. Or maybe everybody just gets back to you in 48 hours and provides you with a quote and you pick the cheapest one. And finally, number 3, as we're talking about the basics of vinyl, everything we're talking about here, I could teach a lecture on for 2, 3, 4 straight days on every tiny little part of making vinyl. However, we're focusing on just the basics. And the third thing is basically the features of your record. So everything that we've talked about so far. I did an episode recently, and I've talked about this in our Label Mates group, about treating vinyl like a luxury item for the music fan. And it is, because they don't need vinyl to listen to music. They can listen to music essentially for free on Spotify or Pandora or Bandcamp, or they can listen to it very cheaply. So why spend $30 or $40 on a deluxe package of vinyl? Well, that's because, like I said at the beginning of this video, we love music. And vinyl, to me, aside from going to a show, is like the most intimate expression of my love for that artist or for that genre, or both. So when I hold a record in hand, especially vintage records for me, when I hold records from the 70s, I'm like, this record was made, it was manufactured before I was born. It was made at a time when this artist was at their peak. I just feel like this incredible historic connection. And then when I get a record from an artist that's a friend of mine or an artist that's still active that I'm a fan of that was just pressed within the past couple of weeks, I feel a different kind of intimate connection, that I've supported that artist and that I have something tangible and something intimate that I can hold and listen to. It just feels different than Spotify. Now, I'm not the only person that feels this way. And for that reason, you need to really put a lot of thought and effort and money into creating this entire package. Like I said, you should really consult with a designer because you don't want this to just be an afterthought. This isn't just an additional vehicle to listen to music. We upload our music to Bandcamp and they're like, oh yeah, let's also upload it to SoundCloud. Oh, and maybe YouTube. And then of course our digital distributor for Spotify. Those are all like afterthoughts. You're just kind of like easily uploading the audio everywhere. I don't want you to do the same thing when it comes to vinyl. I don't want you to just upload the MP3 tracks to your pressing plant. They probably will reject them. I don't want you just to send the WAV files and then the artwork and say, I don't care what you do on the spine. I don't care if it's gatefold. Make it black vinyl. Make it 20 grams. You know what I mean? I really want you to take the time to think about this. There's a couple of easy ways that you can make your vinyl package special. Now, we've done an artwork episode before, and we talk about this in depth in our Label Mates group, but I won't go into it too much. But there are some cool things you can do. I mentioned download codes. That's like a little slip that goes inside the record that takes people from there to your, maybe it's a QR code. It takes people from there to your own webpage or your record label's webpage where they can download the music. So they have the physical product, but they also have the digital file that they own forever. There's hype stickers, which we did a whole video on recently, which is like a sticker that goes on the outside of the cellophane that describes the music, that maybe has the barcode, maybe it has a QR code linking to Spotify so you can hear the music, or YouTube to see a music video or a live performance of this band. This is especially helpful if a music fan is seeing this album in a record store and wants to know more about it and they can't really get into it or sample it, so they can read about it on the hype sticker. There's inserts that you can do. That could be a poster folded up. It could just be a photocopied lyric sheet. It could be a handwritten note. If you're doing a vinyl pressing of 100, that means the artist sits down and writes 100 handwritten notes or handwritten lyrics that fits in. At the same token, you can actually on the back write like 1 of 200. If the vinyl pressing quantity is 200, then you can hand number them. That might take an hour to do, but it's really special. Then a music fan goes, hey, I got number 10 out of a pressing of 200, or I got number 199. That's kind of cool. This is just 4 things of like many things that you can do to make this package really special. That so someone's like, I like this album on Spotify, but I want to love this album in my hands. There's so much more we can talk about. We've talked about vinyl all day long. In fact, I have a whole resource on my website at otherrecordlabels.com/vinyl, and you can check that out and you can dive super deep into this topic. I love this topic. We have a book as well on Amazon that you can order to dig more into this topic. But also check out our sponsor, Hellbender Vinyl. If you're just saying, forget it, I'm sold, I want to do this, let's make a record, reach out to them and they'll walk you through the process of making a record. And then maybe one day I'll find that record in a record store. I'll read about it. I'll scan the QR code. I'll listen to the music and I'll buy it. Hopefully. Thanks so much for watching.